Hey, welcome back to another episode of Reddit 22's Talk 22, the show hosted by me, your boy Mr. to the Jizzle. We back at it again, bring you the conversations that you want to talk about, and we hit you with nothing but the real. And I appreciate everybody coming back from our conversation that we had last week. We spoke so much about drugs and drug addiction, and all the stuff that people suffer with that. We mourn still on the loss of the homie DMX. We had some of our other hip hop icons of the 90s that passed away within the last week or two as well. And we mourn their losses as well. Um, but, just so much went on during this last couple weeks that I really had to give like a full week just to think about it before I just jumped into it. But the conversation that we're bringing you today, was the results from the Derek Chauvin trial, which was the officer that dealt with George Floyd. So many of us, who watched it on TV and seen the actual event as it went down from the video camera, we saw it, and so many of us, the African American community, we live it, and we've been through some of these situations, and just to see it play out on TV yet again, it's so troublesome. It brings you a certain type of anxiety that I don't even know that I can even describe. But at the same time, part of the therapy in this is we got to talk about it. So we're bringing the conversations today. It's a deep, meaningful conversation, and I appreciate my heavy hitters that came on the program today to help me join in on the conversation. Out of the Madison area, I got Super Group from the Super. We got Tyrell and Soup. Can y'all unmute your mic and say what's up to the people out there?
Hey, how we doing today?
Woo! What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? How are y'all doing? I hope y'all doing
Man,
so good.
appreciate y'all coming through. Can you tell the people what you guys been working on lately or anything going on with Super?
Hell yeah. So I'm Tyrell. I go by Tyrell the Well Treated in the long, you know what I'm saying. But as far as Super Friends go, what we've been doing, we've been working on just like, the creation process. Overall trying to perfect that, trying to make sure that we have some good things to put out for y'all in the summer, trying to make sure that summer just really hits. And perfecting the craft is always working on merch, all that kind of stuff. Lots to look forward to. You got anything to add?
We got a lot of ideas. We make a lot of music, and we want to make Madison a very good hip hop city. So we want to change the culture for y'all. So we're doing everything we can, which means linking up with linking up with local artists like Bang, Too Real, who's also here, through Dashed Up, and linking through Boss Lady, and going on this wonderful podcast with Mizzle to the Jizzle. So we trying to link with everyone in Madison and trying to make moves for everybody in the city to be an accurate representation of what love and hip hop is in this entire city. So
Word. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Okay. Also on the program, we have in the Madison area, Boss Lady. Boss Lady, can you say what's up to them people?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, can you let the people know kind of where you working out of and what you got going on?
Well, I'm currently the host of the Universal Soul Explosion on 89.9 FM WORT here in Madison. I've been there for 10 years. And we do a lot of connection with obviously everyone who can tune in, but also those that are behind the walls that can also hear the station. The show is also simulcasted through Was Up Radio, which is based out of New York City. And just trying to keep it going, just trying to keep these voices heard and moving where they need to go.
That's what's up. We appreciate you joining the program as well, Boss Lady. You see, there's love between the radio stations, y'all. Y'all think it's all, a problem, but ain't no problem. There's love between the radio stations.
Absolutely.
Okay. Also on the program, we got Karen. Karen, can you say what's up to the people?
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here.
Karen, can you let the people know kind of what you've been working on in the city?
Yeah, so I'm the president of Urban Community Arts Network. We're a nonprofit that's been around for about 10 years, and we focus on organizing in the hip hop community and creating live performance opportunities where there often aren't any. And keep your eyes open for an outdoor festival in downtown Madison called Mad Lit. This is a project of Rob Dees. He's spearheading this, and we're just looking to keep downtown jumping this summer. And so that'll be on Friday nights starting in July.
Wow, Madison, Wisconsin got a lot of stuff going on. I see this between all of y'all here. So we're going to keep it lit. Last but not least on the program, we got the homie Bang. Y'all seen him before. This the homie Bang. Bang, say what's up to the people.
What's going on, y'all? It's Bang. You already
Nothing.
know, man. You can catch me on bang2real.net. Still got a lot going on. Got the quarantine still circulating. If you want to know my thoughts on the coronavirus, check that out. Check the video out on YouTube. I still got tax season coming out. Got a lot of more music coming out as well. So just keep it tuned with me on bang2real.net.
That's what's up, Bang. Thanks for coming joining the program once again, one time. Well, we're going to start off going back to you, Bang, with the first question of the day. Looking at this Derek Chauvin trial, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I was kind of taken off guard because, when I feel like it's a deja vu situation. We've seen this a few times, right? Where, people basically see a situation go down with the police and African-American community. Situation doesn't get handled right. The guy goes to court. Officer usually gets off. People get upset. They tear down the city.
Yeah.
Then the tanks and troopers have to come. They put down and lock down the city. They lock down the city with the curfew. You sitting in curfew for about 2 weeks and you move on to the next police shooting. We've seen this too many times, I feel like. So, with that being said, Bang, my question to you is, were you kind of surprised by the verdict of this trial?
For me, I was not surprised. I was not surprised. And for anybody that don't know, he was charged with second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. Just to make that clear. But I wasn't surprised at all. If you saw that video, to me, it was no way that man was getting off. And especially after a full year of riots and the BLM protests, if that man would have been found not guilty, Minnesota would have been burnt up. It would have been over with. I mean, and especially if you see the video and you see the actual trial, the man was just emotionless. I don't think the man had a heart at all. The man just didn't care. Period. He didn't take the stand. He didn't have nothing to say. To me, that was a clear guilty with his emotions, his actions, and that video. Clear guilty.
Okay, well, I appreciate your thoughts on that, Bang. I want to move next to Karen and get your thoughts on that. Karen, I don't know about you, but I mean, I was kind of shocked because honestly, I was expecting to go down the way that I just described, with them tearing down Minnesota, the Twin Cities, and, then the troops have to move in and then put everybody on lockdown for about a few weeks. I mean, were you shocked?
Yeah, I was shocked. I have a lot of meetings during the day, so I was supposed to have a meeting when the verdict was going to be read, but it got done early. So I had the TV on, kind of sitting on the edge of my seat, waiting for it to come off. And I remembered when Tody Robinson was murdered by police officer Matt Kenney in Madison, Wisconsin, a few years ago, and waiting for the DA to bring out that verdict, just to find out if there were going to be any charges filed. And I kind of flashed back to that moment and just being so nervous, like you want it so bad, but you're kind of setting yourself up to be disappointed. Right. So yeah, definitely I was surprised because we've seen it go the wrong way before.
Too many times. Yeah. I mean, Boss, I guess I want your opinion as well. I mean, I saw soldiers already moving into the Minnesota area going into the verdict. And I was like, oh, okay, so they putting the line up together already because they already know what the play is. So it's You don't even have to wait. I know what it's going to be. Not guilty, right? So I was wrong. Were you wrong?
Yeah, part of me was shocked and part of me wasn't. And I think the hard thing about it is like you really want to know, did this go this way because of like what Bang said, where if it would have went any other way, the whole city would have been burnt up. And not only that, but there's been so much over the past year, country and nationwide, that it almost, you almost wonder is that fear, has that been instilled enough that it made them say like, man, we can't go not guilty. We'd be crazy to go not guilty. Or was it actually clear cut case? Because we've seen so many cases before that have been clear cut and always came back not guilty or protected.
Exactly.
But you have a modern day lynching that was caught on film. So like Bang said too, I mean, you really can't go any other way. You can analyze it all you want to, but bottom line is we needed to have the not guilty. So I guess part of me was shocked and part of me wasn't, but I was very happy to see that happen. But I'm still on the edge of my seat. If you want to, a lot of people say, well, that part's over, but I'm still like, nah, we're just beginning.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Okay, super. I need to know from y'all too. I mean, the same thing. Were y'all like Bang, where you weren't surprised, or were you like me and these ladies where it kind of was a shock?
I gotta say, I'm in a boat where I'm kind of like where Bang and Boss Lady are, where it's kind of like I was shocked in a way where it was like there has been a lot of things going on, and we have seen repeat things and situations where it does go the wrong way or it does go in a way where there isn't actually any conviction that happens. I think that the part of me that wasn't shocked though was with what Bang was saying, where it's like there is a lot of repercussion to the idea of seeing that go not guilty, especially with the height of where things are at. So I guess overall, to answer the question in short, it's mainly I was shocked in a sense where it was more of a gleeful shock, where it was like, yo, that's pretty crazy. Like that's some pretty good news right there. But in terms of not being shocked, I think like taking into account all the things that have been happening, taking into account protests, any riots, anything that might have happened in the past, like there just might have been too much repercussion for them to even consider the other direction. And plus, looking at a video like that, you can clearly see that it, like they were saying, it's just clear-cut evidence at that point. You can't watch that and simply say, nah, that wasn't it. You know what I'm saying? Like, man's innocent. You can't watch that and say that.
All right, let me ask. Okay, Soup, I got a question for you here. What piece of evidence do you think solidified the case for the jury this time around?
I think the first piece of evidence we done saw it was the video. There was no way you looked at that video and you was like, "There's no that man's innocent," because he had his hand in his pocket, straight chilling. And I think the second damning piece of evidence, truthfully, was when the autopsy came back and all the bullshit that they tried to get him with, like his heart was just too big and he had drugs in his system and all this other stuff. When that came back and they're like, nah, there's nothing in there that could have provoked his early death other than a knee on the back of your windpipe. I think that was really what got it, because that was, in my mind, it's not the defendant. I guess the defendant and Derek Chauvin's whole legal team, that's kind of like their ace in the hole, right? Of like, nah, he didn't do it because this man was on drugs and he was frothing at the mouth and he had drugs in his mouth that he tried to hide from the cops. So I think once that came back negative, all the smoke and mirrors were just lifted and you could see past the veil as this is just true unfiltered racism and neglect for human life. So I think that the video itself and the autopsy were really the two nails in the coffin from the jump.
Okay. Boss Lady, I mean, do you agree with them? What do you feel like was the I guess the jewel that solved the case for everybody here with the jury?
I mean, honestly, I think I agree with everything that he said, but unfortunately, I also have to think that from everything we've seen and how many instances this has happened where everything does come back in the favor of still a guilty verdict, I think the one thing that really made the difference this time around was the fact that there was other officers that came in and testified against him. I mean,
Mm.
realistically, if every single person would have stuck to their story of how they felt it was going to be, it might have went another way because we've seen that happen so many times. But I feel like in this case, the fact that there were some that actually stood up and said something like, no, that's actually not how I'm operating. That's really not facts. That's not valid. He shouldn't have done that. That to me, honestly, was the tipping scale because they were talking to their people. You know what I mean? And they identified with that answer. They don't, the ones in charge don't always necessarily identify with the evidence, more so with the opinions of their peers, if that makes sense.
Wow, that's pretty wild. I kind of agree with you because I mean, even with the death of George Floyd, when people went to the streets to protest, for me personally, what I saw different in the protesting this time around was I saw more white faces than ever. And I feel like white people speaking on racism is that much more effective than another angry black woman, another angry black man. You know, they whining about this, they whining about that. But for someone of a different from the race that we're talking about saying no, that ain't right, is that much more powerful, that much more grand in this situation because they are the people that are oppressing of a certain race are the ones speaking on behalf. I think there's some power with that. If you agree, please leave your comments in the comment section. We want to hear from you at home as well. Karen, I want to go to you with a different question though. I want to ask, we say that the video evidence was something that may have been damning to his Derek Chauvin's defense situation, but I kind of agree with Boss Lady here because I mean we've seen videos of things like Rodney King we saw on live TV, right? We've seen Ahmaud Arbery get shot in the street. We all saw that video. We've seen so many of these videos, and at the same time, they have different outcomes. Why do you feel like this one was different? Why do you feel like the video evidence was different in this situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think probably the closest comparison for me would be Philando Castile, because we had kind of a full video of him sitting in his car, not doing anything and getting shot. And that officer was also charged with second-degree murder and lesser charges and was acquitted on all those counts. But I think for this one, it definitely is, part of this happening at a time where people are starting to pay more attention. I think with, I think with COVID and people watching the news more often, this was probably other people who wouldn't have always had the chance to see what was going on might have caught this and figured it out. Also, part of the video was, this officer sitting for so long, kneeling on his neck with his hands in his pocket. That image, I think, rocked people because it's not a struggle. It's looks pretty peaceful, and he's sitting there with a knee on his neck. I think that turned it a little bit for folks.
I think there's some power in seeing him in that dominant state, like Bank said, kind of not giving a what, and we look at that as like, well, how can you do that? How can you not care for this man's life? I understand you may need to apprehend him, but how do you not have any remorse for killing this man like that? So Bang, I want to know from you the same question that I just asked Karen. Basically, we've seen other situations where we seen the videotape. We seen Trayvon get killed, but Trayvon got murdered and nobody gave a lick. Zimmerman's still walking around here. So why do you feel like the video evidence was as effective as changing the opinions of the jury in this situation?
Yeah, I agree with the panel on this one. And I do think that timing was everything for this one as well, because with the protests, the BLM movement, and something like this happening, I think it just blew up. It blew up a lot. And seeing Chauvin's picture, that emotionless picture, floating everywhere, it makes him look bad. And the 9 minutes and 29 seconds, you can't even forget that. 9 minutes and 29 seconds that an officer had his knee on somebody's neck with an emotionless face, just did not care at all. I think that had a lot to do with it. And I also feel like the fact that, protests and riots also had, played a part in it as well, because, they was going to turn the city up, if it was going to go any other direction. So, I mean, it was so many things. I mean, this was a real big issue right here. You know what I'm saying? It just blew up so much that I think this one had to go the right way, or it might have been a problem across the nation. It would have been way past Minnesota. It would have went everywhere. I think it would have been riots and stuff everywhere if Chauvin would have been found not guilty. It would have been over with. So yeah, it was a lot of factors. A lot of factors in that verdict.
I appreciate your thoughts on that, Bang. Boss Lady, I want to ask you, one of the, Wisconsin, I guess you would say, Hall of Fame people that we look to as one of our heroes, Brett Favre, he spoke on the situation. And one of his thoughts was that he felt like Derek Chauvin had no intention on killing George Floyd, was his thoughts. He says there's no way he could have had that intention, like it happened, but he feels like there was no malice, there was no intent there to murder. So you can't charge him with murder if the man has no intentions to murder. Do you believe that Brett was right to speak on it? 2, do you agree with him that Derek Chauvin maybe had no intention on murdering this man?
No and no, I guess, if I want to put it that way.
Okay. To what part?
We have way too many cases of Black women and men who have been killed by officers claiming that their intent was such and such. To have somebody come back and say, well, his intent wasn't such and such. It just that's a comfort statement. You know what I mean? That's like something that someone makes to just protect the good ones, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Because there are a lot of good in officers, and there's a lot of good people out there that are trying to make a difference. But you can't make blanket statements when it's something that needs to be addressed. And I think like sometimes, people who are I guess you want to say, looked up to or well known or in the public eye or in the great land of cheese, might be a former player, whatever, are used to, try to get that message across, kind of like I said, you talk to the ones who you think are going to hear you, kind of thing. And the thing is, that's like a false narrative, and we need to stop doing that, because number one, this incident to me doesn't seem like it's, put it this way, I'm going to say this delicately, and I can explain later if you don't agree with me, but not only is this a problem because too many Black Americans or Black people, period, Black and brown, I should say, too many go through this with no justice whatsoever. So that's one topic. But even if you want to take race out of it, there's too many incidents where police aren't being held accountable. So even if you want to look at it as it's not a race issue, it's still a justice and a protect and serve issue. It's still a social, ethical issue. If you want to put race back into it, finally we have something that shows that even though your view of someone not having intent, still, this isn't just one-sided. It's not the community that's the fear. And now you should understand why the community fears the other side, so to speak, because it's not one-sided. They're getting that he may not have had intent, but he was killed for it. Just like Breonna Taylor didn't have intent to do anything, she was killed for it. I mean, that to me is just a lot of bullshit, to be honest.
I mean, I agree with you. I appreciate your thoughts on that as well. I want to go next to Tyrell. I want to ask you, the similar question there. Looking at Brett Favre's statement, there's a lot of people out there that would say, this officer, and the defense was trying to say that this officer was basically just doing his job and to trying to apprehend, perpetrator, and being Mr. Floyd, unfortunately. Do you feel like that in these situations that these officers maybe don't have the intention on killing these black men, but maybe it's just part of the job?
So I think, man, it's a strange thing to attack. Because one thing that I said earlier, I was talking to Corey, and I said, you can definitely trust that someone will most likely do their job. However, the way that they do their job is something that you can't necessarily trust, right? Like someone may go out, be like, yeah, I'm gonna go sell some hot dogs right now, but little did you know, I'm gonna go ahead, throw them out, take somebody's money, bring it back to you, type thing. Like it's this idea, and that's probably not the best comparison, but the idea here is that like you can trust a police officer to do their job. However, how they decide to approach to do their job is a whole different story. I think one of the arguments that was brought up from the defendant here was this idea of the 16 minutes prior to the 9 minutes and 29 seconds. That whole argument, I feel like, is one of those things where it's like by the point you had, let's say, George Floyd in handcuffs, at that point, the man's Chauvin, as well as the officers who were there with him, should have picked up George Floyd and then done the right thing as far as like, okay, you are going to have a fair assessment here of what's going on, rather than sitting there for 9 minutes on somebody's neck. I think that the approach is definitely where the intent line gets drawn, where it's like the intent may not have necessarily been to kill, but at that point, the intent was definitely to see struggle or to harm George Floyd. And that is what's not acceptable.
Okay. I appreciate your thoughts on that as well. And I do agree with you there. I want to go next to Karen. Karen, I want to ask you, there was some talk that with all the commenters out there that commented on the trial, some big name people, like we're talking about Brett Favre here, they feel like Mr. Chauvin, Derek Chauvin there, didn't get a fair trial, and that it may give him an angle for a new trial, actually. With that being said, do you feel like Derek Chauvin was given a fair trial?
If we're defining fair trial according to how our court system usually operates, then absolutely. We don't see the concept of fair. It is a tricky one in our court system. When most people's cases are concluded by who's got the most money, who's got the most power. Over 95% of cases in the United States are settled by a plea bargain. Only less than 3% actually get a trial. So it's a privilege right there that he actually got a trial and wasn't forced into a plea bargain and accepting a deal. Of course, media attention is going to affect people's mindsets, but at the same time, there was all kinds of perspectives being shared. There's, you turn on CNN versus Fox News, for example, you're going to get a completely different perspective on what actually happened in that video and what's actually happening with our police department, our, court system, and, what's really going on. So I think in those terms, yes, he got a fair trial. Now, does that mean he can't use that as grounds for appeal? No, because our system is not fair and is not just. So I'm sure he'll be able to, come up with some reason, and it's going to be a risk. I don't think he's got a slam dunk appeal, and I don't think it's a given that he's not going to get granted an appeal. This is the first time we've gotten a conviction like this, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, fair enough. Bang, I want to ask you the same question. There's been a lot of talk that with so many people speaking on the trial, and for even the situation that you talked about with the greater risk of harming the city, they felt like, some of his supporters believed that Derek Chauvin did not receive a fair trial. some would say that George Floyd didn't even receive his trial. So my question to you is, do you feel like Derek Chauvin received a fair trial in this situation?
Of course he did. I don't even understand how somebody could feel it was unfair. I just can't even wrap my head around that. For anybody that feels like it was unfair for him, I want you to just ask yourself, what if it was you? What if you was George Floyd? What if you was on the ground and an officer had their knee on your neck for that long and killed you? Would you be saying, this man deserves a fair trial for killing me? Nah, I don't think that you would. And fair, the jury was 6 white people, 4 black people, and 2 mixed people. You don't get no fair than that. It don't get no better than that. Now I don't know where all these people are from, but just based off of race, 6 white, 4 black, 2 mixed. That was fair. That was way fair. So yeah, it was a fair trial. He got what he deserved. I mean, he really should have got the death penalty, in my opinion. Eye for an eye.
Okay, I don't know if the state of Minnesota has that, but you know, his actual sentencing hasn't taken place yet, so we'll have to wait and see. But Bang, I want to go back to you on this question. Was this case more about police brutality or racism, in your opinion?
For me, police brutality. A lot of people probably say racism. I think it's real easy to say racism, because a lot of white police officers kill black unarmed men a lot, too many times. Just unarmed people, period. Civilians, period. But the whole racism thing, I don't know. I don't know if Chauvin just hate black people. I don't know. It's real easy to say that he was racist, but I think that it was a racist act, because of everything that just been going on. A lot of white officers are killing black people, so it was a racist act. I don't know if he was actually racist, but he was an asshole and he's guilty of racism. So it's the same thing. Police brutality, racism, to me, it doesn't matter. It's the same in the results for me. That man, he can swear up and down that he ain't racist. I really don't care who's racist or who's not racist these days. I ain't got no way of figuring it out unless somebody say that they're racist or they're not. But I'm judging just by the actions. It was an asshole move. It was a racist move, and bro got what he deserved. Police brutality, racism don't matter. He should be locked up. Period.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We appreciate your thoughts on that. I want to ask Soup. I want to ask you the same question, Soup. I want to know from you. You feel like this case, with this verdict that came down, do you feel like that had more to do with racism or police brutality in your mind?
I think it's a mix of both. I think it is a racist police getting the opportunity to display and brutalize his enemy. Because I'm not positive it's fair to say that he's not racist just because, it could have been anybody or anything like that. I think the unconscious bias that you have as a white person in America by default, by being born here, into the generational disparity that was set up for you to prosper in, while simultaneously joining an alliance or a gang, really, join a gang, you get a badge and a gun, you are so setting yourself up to be in a position that really puts people's lives in danger. And whether he's racist or not, he sure did jump through a lot of hoops that, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, that set him up to be looked at sideways. So I can't say honestly if he's racist or not, and it's unfair for me to say that because I don't know him, because I'm not him. But I think that there is implicit unconscious bias that is instilled in him, and I think that he took that and siphoned the life out of a man between his knee and a concrete street.
Okay, appreciate your thoughts on that. Tyrell, I want to ask you that same question though, because my question to you is, if let's say that George Floyd, instead of being, a big black man. Let's say he is a young white female, and the store clerk calls the police on him or her in this situation. Do you feel like that same situation goes down?
Based on the way that we see things play out, I personally, like statistically, I don't think that it would have played out the same way.
Does he
I don't.
approach her the same way?
I don't believe so. No, I don't think that's going to be the same approach. It like even just the setup there. There's a young white female store clerk is like, "Yo, get this female out of here." It's not going to be the same approach. It's definitely not going to be this, especially when you got this man who appears, as we have stated before, lifeless in a video or emotionless, like killing somebody who is of another color, black. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no way they're going to approach someone of the same quote unquote kind at that point. Especially a female as well who is of that race in that same way, you know.
So in a way, then what we are saying that it is racism, then, correct?
I think statistically, I personally would say it was racism, or like what Corey was saying, it's a racist police officer taking the opportunity to display that or to display this brutalized situation, I suppose.
Okay, appreciate your thoughts on that, Tara. Okay, so boss lady, I want to ask you, should the other officers that stood and watched Chauvin kill Mr. Floyd be found guilty as well, in your opinion?
I mean, honestly, I say yeah. And the reason I say that is because ignorance is no excuse for the law. And when you have someone that steals a car and they go pick up 4 or 5 of their friends and they charge 4 or 5 of their friends for that auto party to a crime, what makes this situation any different? So if you look at police training, and I obviously have never been an officer, but I mean, anyone just look at police training and you take an oath and you have training specifically so you know how to do your job. You have to know your ordinances depending on where your city is. You have to know your state law, where's your jurisdiction. There's levels to it that you are supposed to know to uphold that position to be able to do what you do. So if you look and you see that the person literally 1 foot away from you is doing something above and beyond what their job duties are supposed to do to someone who's already in restraints, regardless of the color they are, but then again, on top of that fact, to stand up and say, hey, not only are you doing this to a white lady, but you're doing this to a black man. Either way, it would still be their responsibility to step up and say, this, nah, fam, because otherwise I'm going to go down with you. There's absolutely no reason in my mind to think that they shouldn't be charged for a party to a crime for some or something to that effect. I don't know anyone that can justify them getting off.
Okay, appreciate your thoughts on that. Karen, I want to ask you the same question. You know, when I look at that situation with the other officers who will have their day in court as well, I guess my thoughts are, that these officers sat and watched the same situation go down and did nothing too. A lot of people say there are good officers out there. They're not just bad officers, but the problem that a lot of African Americans have about that situation is good officers stand with the bad officers. Good officers never say anything when they see bad officers. I mean, we all see bad people at our job doing, not good stuff. I mean, you may be at your job and there's somebody at your job that's not good at their job, right? There's somebody who working at McDonald's that's doing the fries and you're like, dude sucks at making fries. I don't know why they have them here, but nobody points dude out and says, dude sucks at making fries. He needs to be up out of here, but in this situation, you got a situation where the officers never say nothing about their coworkers that they know are flawed at doing their jobs. And can you be a good officer and stand with bad officers? So, I mean, what do you feel like should happen with these other officers that stood there and watched him, Mr. Floyd?
Well, you bring up a good point that it's not the question is layered, right? It's a little bit complex because like the guy making the fries, like we're not gonna snitch on dude and get him fired. And that happens. It sounds simple in the McDonald's example, but that happens in all of our spheres where somebody might not be doing it very well, but are they going to tell? Does that happen in hospitals? Do people actually tell? I don't know. Do we know that? And so
I will tell you, I work in healthcare outside of this, and I see people in healthcare that are bad at their jobs.
Yes.
And I see it all the time. I mean, this is something serious, healthcare, it's dealing with people's lives. But my thing is, we see this all the time. Do you feel like they need to step up and say something when they see someone bad at their job?
Yeah. And if you're in a profession where there are cases of life and death, then you have a moral responsibility. And, Boss Lady mentioned you take an oath to uphold the laws and the code, then yeah, you absolutely have a responsibility to intervene. And I mean, there are some videos floated around during this time of other cops actually doing that when their fellow officer gets out of hand, gets caught up in the moment, pushing him aside and making sure that the right thing gets done. And these people not only watched it happen, but this wasn't a split-second decision. There was a lot of time to intervene, and every single person on the scene knew that they were being recorded, knew that people were watching and recording. Everyone knows this is going on by now. And so under all of those circumstances, you did nothing. I don't care if it was a senior officer. I don't care what your culture is or seniority or rank or whatever. It doesn't matter. And on the flip side, as Boss Lady mentioned, there's kids, teenagers that get life sentences because some older guy did something stupid like this and somebody died. And that little kid is going to be charged with party to a crime when we know that it would have been almost impossible for that kid to tell that older guy not to do it, or he might have died himself. But if you're getting paid to uphold the law and protect people, yeah, you have to say something. And these officers absolutely need to be held accountable, every last one of them.
Okay, I appreciate your thoughts on that as well, Karen. Bang, we're gonna come to you and ask, the defense, part of the defense was trying to say that, the Mr. Chauvin was distracted in the situation because there was so much going on the scene, and part of the defense was saying that the crowd being so loud and yelling and stuff and being distracted into the situation, they feel like, they had something to do with it and almost put the crowd on trial as much as anything. But at the same time, without the crowd, we would not have this video evidence from the camera phone to be able to convict. As a good Samaritan, my question to you is, do you think the crowd helped or hurt Mr. Floyd's chance at life?
I think they tried to help, most definitely. They did what I expected. They tried their best to intervene. They tried their best to stop the crime from happening. But they don't want to go to jail. They don't want to risk their freedom. To stand up to police officers. So I feel like police officers really shouldn't feel comfortable killing somebody, an unarmed civilian, in front of everybody like that. Should not feel comfortable. That man was too comfortable in his skin doing what he was doing. And I'm gonna tell y'all the same thing I told my people, saying when this happened. If I'm in that situation, you're gonna have to do something, because I'm gonna do something. And you might not have to risk your freedom. I ain't saying you got to punch a police officer or nothing like that. You could throw a brick, you could throw a rock, you could throw a bottle, you could throw a chair, you could do something. You could spit on them and run. I don't care what you do. You know what I'm saying? Do not, just watch me die. And I think that was just real sad. You know what I'm saying? For George Floyd to be surrounded by so many people, and for him to already feel helpless, and then even for the people to feel helpless, like they can't even help. You know what I'm saying? That is a huge problem. Police are way too comfortable, and they should not be comfortable coming into our neighborhoods, our community, when we paying their salary and we ain't paying them to kill us, they should not feel comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like that just got to stop. So since this got so big, I really feel like across the nation, if something like this was to happen again, the people better do something about it. You know what I'm saying? We can't just watch somebody die like that. You know what I'm saying? That's not cool. We got to do something about it, period.
I mean, but we have seen it since then, you know, with situations like this has occurred since then. I mean, we've seen a situation in Kenosha. A man got shot in his back, you know, how many times, and got off. Shout out to our listener, said Tupac would have helped. I don't know about that, but you know, rest in peace, Tupac. We appreciate what he did for the community musically. But you know, I'm gonna go to you, Tyrell. I want to know from you. Do you feel like the crowd helped or hurt the situation for Mr. Floyd?
It's honestly it's a tough one. I agree with what Bang's saying. Where and Corey had mentioned that recording piece earlier, where it's like the crowd is the source of the footage, right? And
Right.
that helped bring awareness to the situation. However, I do agree with Bang that like, and Corey also mentioned this earlier when we were talking about it, that like there could have been someone who went up and just like that you could have pushed somebody off, you know, thrown something, some type of distraction. But then again, the this other piece here too that you had talked about where Chauvin said or was distracted by whatever. If you were distracted by something like that, I feel like at that point you would get up and go or like move to a different location or like okay, let's go back to the precinct, whatever's going on. Like this man was like sitting there like sightseeing, like kind of looking around, watching for birds type situation. Like I think if you've got a crowd around you like that, there's no way you can be distracted to a point where you are unable to move or unable to get up and do something else. You know what I'm saying? Or the officers who were watching, there's no way that if they were also, you know, compelled to a point or distracted, whatever it may have been, there's no way that they would have just kept on standing there doing just about nothing. You know what I'm saying? I think the crowd itself, to go back to that main question, it's really hard to say as far as whether or not they had helped or had hurt the situation by means or like harmed Floyd's chance of survival here. But I think it's absolutely ridiculous to assume that Chauvin was distracted to a point where they didn't know what to do. It's hard on both ends. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Soup, I want to ask you, do you believe with the outcome being a verdict of guilty in this situation, do you believe that this will help change policing in America going forward?
I do think it will help policing in America in the future because I don't think any officer wants to be that one officer who killed a black person and now their life is on social media. As sad of like a failsafe as that is, like it's truly deplorable and sad. Like I don't want to be on social media, get hate, so I'm not going to kill black people. That's what's stopping you. That's what I feel. It sucks that that's what it is, but that's what it is. So I think that when an officer handles a situation, in their mind, they're always like, is this a black person? Because my entire reputation, career, and all that could be fucked up if this goes in the way that George Floyd did, instead of the way, rest in peace and let justice come to her name, Breonna Taylor did, right? It can go one of two ways. And so the officer might not want to risk that. And so that might cause hesitance to be like, oh shit, let me get my act together. But at the same time, Tyler said earlier, it might cause, just officers to kind of have a dog in the fight of racism where they're like, now I've hated black people before, but now I really hate black people. And now it's like they're out there in the streets really trying to knock heads and do all this whack shit because they see their other officers, their other Blue Lives Matter brothers, you know what I'm saying, justifiably getting taken down. And now they got to stick up for somebody, or now they got to really try to put on this alpha dog show and try to really clean up the streets or whatever they're trying to do. So I hope that what happens is officers do look at that and they say, that's fucked up. And we are now getting caught for this. Like, this is no joke no more. We can't be doing this. I hope that's the route it goes. And I don't think it will go that, you know what I'm saying, that frat boy kind of let's get them, us against them mentality. But I really hope that it gets better in America.
Okay. Appreciate your thoughts on that, Soup. Boss Lady, I want to come to you next and ask you the same question. You know, TMZ just recently had a video where some officers had to apprehend a young lady, and when they apprehended the young lady, they tossed her to the ground and had her restrained. And the officer then got on top of her and started punching her in the face. The other two officers ended up pushing the other officer off and told him, "Hey, dude, you gotta check yourself." You know, that was post the verdict of the Floyd case here. Do you feel like this case may put that same pause in some other officers' mind, or do you feel like what he's saying it may get worse before it gets better?
It's really a hard call because we really need to see what they give him for sentencing, first of all, to see if anything really comes out of it. I mean, we're not really quite there yet.
True.
But even then, I feel like for those that look at it as a police brutality issue, yes, it should help. If for those that look at this as more of a racist issue, like Karen and I do a lot of work outside of music together, and she can tell you too, this is baked in. Like, racism is so deep that there's a lot of times people don't really even know that they're doing it, or that they don't really even understand that what they did or what they said or how they acted is a trigger for the other person. And that goes not just for a Black person approaching a white person, but as a white person approaching a Black person. If you don't know and let's say, if you don't know and understand or care, put it that way, what Black and brown people have gone through systematically for way beyond years, beyond anybody who's even on this panel has been around. If you're not aware of that and you don't approach that situation with that knowledge, there's already embedded and baked in issues that can come up, and you might even come up as a hands up, hey, I'm an ally. But if you don't understand that they you know what I mean? Like, you automatically have your walls formed because this is not just a new thing. So I feel like some of this stuff is deeper than just one trial, and some of this stuff is going to take longer than just this situation. But I do think for those that are on the fence, having this be such a public issue and having this be blown up the way it was. And I think one more thing real quick is when they were videotaping, the fact that, and I use this loosely, but you'll understand, law-abiding citizens that are standing by watching, okay, the fact that they felt too uncomfortable to tell an officer that what they were doing was wrong means that our problems are bigger than just this case. Because there should be no reason for you to be scared of an officer when you know that what you're saying and doing is the right thing and what he's doing is wrong. So, I mean, to answer your question, I think yes and no, but I feel like I guess I feel like we're just really at the beginning, and a lot of things need to happen in continuing conversations like these, and also just trying to understand the other person's viewpoint, whether it be Black, white, brown, or even officers. Sometimes we need to look at what they're seeing, and that's true. But I also think that what Black and brown people have seen for so many years far outweighs what officers see now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's deep. And I agree with you there. The understanding isn't there on many levels for many people, and without the understanding, the racism will never be alleviated ever. So, and you got to want to have that understanding, first of all, to even be able to have that understanding. So, like our listener here saying, the fear is a concern. Yeah, fear is what's breeding that. I mean, that's what's breeding the racism and everything, is the fear, not understanding. Why did the Americans fear one officer at stake? That's a great question as well. But I want to give our last question to Karen here. And I want to start it off with you and ask, what can we learn from the outcome of all of this trial? Like, what can we learn here as Americans with the outcome?
Well, we can learn that making noise does make a difference. In Madison during these protests, you can say what you want about violent protests, but they've been what makes the difference in our history, there's a lot of research and evidence around that. A statue came down on the square in Madison, and a senator got punched in the face. And the very next day, the school board ended their contract with police. And you can't tell me that's not related. So making noise matters. We need multiple angles of protest. We need pulling down statues. We need people who are writing their legislators. We need people who are patiently doing the one-on-one conversations to educate and change. We need all of those angles pushing on this issue for it to change at all. So what we can learn is that even though we would all prefer for things to change faster, it happens. And if we keep the pressure on and keep pushing, we can, we can get that reform that we're talking about. It kind of goes back to your last question where I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better in terms of seeing videos like this and horrible situations between officers and citizens because the tension is so high. But we see movement on the policy level right now. We're seeing city councils pass resolutions. No one wants to hear defund the police, so let's talk about refunding education and refunding mental health treatment and refunding all of the social services that got cut and dumped on police officers' plates, which they are not equipped to deal with. So I think we can also learn that I think just getting a deeper look into what does racism really look like. Boss Lady mentioned it's far beyond just the individual. There's layers to this. It's in our systems, it's in our structures. And so it's more than just changing mindsets to untangle this mess. It has to happen at multiple layers. But we've seen now that change can happen, that people's voices do matter. And we just got to keep pushing forward.
Okay. Appreciate your thoughts on that, Karen. Bang, I want to give you an opinion on this last question as well. I want to know, what can we learn from the outcome of all this trial?
Yeah, I would have to agree. We have a better chance of locking up police officers like Chauvin if we do continue to make that noise. We do continue to apply pressure, but I also feel like we got to hit them from more than one angle. In order to make that change, we got to change within ourselves. I say this, and I always feel like this. What would make a big change? You had 100 senators, and we have like 435 people in the House of Representatives. If you had 535 Black people trying to get in those seats, I guarantee you, they'll start changing laws then. Because these are the people that make the laws. We need different people in those seats. I don't really, I don't feel too confident asking them, to change a law, make things better for me. I ask somebody that came from where I came from, that know my struggle. They don't know my struggle. They don't know what I've been through. They don't understand. They probably don't understand why the police acting the way that they acting. I don't know, but I know that they don't know my struggle, so therefore I'm not too confident that they're going to make laws to accommodate me. But if somebody or some people that came from where I came from sit in those seats that understand how it is, to be Black, or understand how it is, to deal with racism and all that, and they have the ability to make those changes, then I would feel like there will be major changes instead of continuing asking these same old people, to make a change for me. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Thank you for that, Bang. Tyrell, I'm going to give you the last word. I want to ask you the same question, though. In your opinion, with it being kind of a shock result so far with the trial going the way that it went, do you feel like what is it that we should learn from this outcome as a country here?
Honestly, at the moment, I don't have a whole lot that I could add into the what we can learn piece. However, I think something that is important to kind of take away as well is to make sure that, like, even though we do want things to be happening on this bigger level and we want to see these bigger outcomes and change around the nation, etc. I think it is also important to make sure, to secure your own mental health, to also take a note of like what's happening locally, what's happening on smaller levels as well. Taking time to be kind to one another, taking time to have these conversations, as it's been stated before. It's very important to, kind of check in and make sure that you are paying attention, not only to those big things that seem almost impossible, but to those little things that are making those big things possible.
I appreciate that, Tyrell. And Bang, I got to say, I do also agree with what you just stated, because shout out to Dr. Umar, who just recently had an interview that spoke on the presidential candidate and what he's done for this situation, where he played on a lot of votes in the African American community to help run. And so far, we haven't seen a lot of help when it comes to situations like these. So, Mr. President, we watching. So, that being said, I want to thank my panel. We got from Madison, we got the Super Crew, Tyrell and Soup. We want to say what's up to y'all.
What's
hey,
up,
yo. It's been a pleasure being on the show. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, Karen, we want to thank you for joining the program. Can you let people know where they find you one last time?
Yeah, I appreciate it. You can find us at UCAN Madison, UCAN Madison on Twitter and Facebook. You can look up Urban Community Arts Network. Our website is ucanmadison.org. And we are a nonprofit, so go ahead and hit that Cash App, UCAN Madison as well.
That's what's up. Boss Lady, we thank you for joining the program. Let them know where they can find you, please.
Thank you. Direct email is 608bosslady@gmail. Instagram is 608bosslady. And there's also a group on Facebook if you know anyone that is incarcerated or formerly incarcerated or anything surrounding these topics that you want to just have a support group. It's called C1B1 After Incarceration Circle, and you feel free to join. Everyone's welcome.
That's what's up. And last but not least, Bang, please let the people know where they can find you, sir.
Yeah, y'all can get up with me on bang2real.net. I'll keep y'all updated on there.
That's what's up. Look for more projects dropping from Bang. But I want to thank all y'all for joining us and leaving the comments like you did. This is such a hot topic. These people, I appreciate them being so brave and speaking on it. A lot of people were kind of, didn't want to touch it, but I appreciate their bravery and even speaking on it because, this is such an important conversation. And I feel like, it's not going to get any better unless we do address it. So I thank these people here for addressing it with me. But, until next time, y'all, I want to appreciate everybody who joined us. I'm your boy Mizzle to the Jizzle. You've been watching Radio 22's Talk 22. Till next time, y'all. Peace.